So first, my question is to General Sir. Uh, my first question is to you. I'll start with the question. So generally, when we talk about security, the first thing that comes to mind is the defense forces or the external security or how the soldiers are guarding our borders. But then in your presentation, you spoke about so much: food security, water security, biosecurity, climate change, and so on and so forth. So 100 years back, when the first mechanized warfare happened in terms of World War I, before that we had the use of cavalry and things like that. But then those things have become redundant, and you don't see a cavalry unit per se in the warfare today. So 100 years down the line, you spoke about traditional and non-traditional. At the same time, we see in Galwan, hand-to-hand combat still happening. But on the other end, we see something like COVID or something like at the click of a mouse, a banking system can be collapsed. And that can cause more damage to a country's security or fortune rather than a full-blown war. So in terms of that, how prepared are we in terms of all these measures that you have said? Say, let it be biosecurity or it's a new one. But in terms of, say, financial security, banking systems being safe, in terms of food security, in terms of water, as you said, China might divert any time, though the news may be false, but that threat is there. How secure are we in terms of other countries? Say, we are the fastest growing economy, we have one of the world's largest military force and all that. But in terms of these new paradigms, these new changes that are coming in, where are we? Are we there as such?
Yeah, that's a good question. But what I mentioned in my presentation is the left part, the traditional one. I explained to you in detail as to how this warfare is going to evolve. And based on that, you find you need to build your capabilities. So the problem that comes up is when an audience like this reads a paper today or tomorrow, you find two pictures, one on China, one India. China has got 800 tanks, India has got 2,000 tanks, 8,000 tanks, yeah. India has got 2,000 tanks, RT, this much, that much. War is not about numbers. Okay, war is not won on numbers. If that was the case, then Russia should have won overnight. It doesn't work like that. So the issue is that in addition to the capabilities that exist in a country, how much a country can bring to bear on you, that needs to be worked on. That's what I was doing for 40 years. Similarly, what kind of threat can come to you from various quarters is something that you need to understand, and that is the planning that the armed forces do. So that on that front, I would, and even Mr. Prafulla was very clear in saying that leave it to armed forces, yeah, and they will handle the borders. Okay, that is fine. We will still handle the borders. Numbers notwithstanding. Numbers are not everything in fighting a war. Terrain is important. How much can you bring is important. Those calculations have been made in detail. But technologically, how you can upgrade yourself is something that you need to be looking at. So that is what the work is going on now. If you ask me, we are already there, we are not there, we are here.
Okay.
And in other terms of other threats that you talked about, the cyber threat, the financial threat, etc., etc., there you find that we need a lot more work to do. We have done a lot of work, and we are one of the IT superpowers, as we know, but the systems are different. So you need to deal with those systems differently. And today, there are a lot of effort that is on by the National Cybersecurity Coordinator and others to ensure that these systems are made robust. So a lot of work has been done, a lot of work needs to be done, and that is the way not only us, all the countries are facing the same thing.
Okay, thank you, sir. My next question is to Colonel. So one of the most important decisions probably that was taken last year is in terms of Agniveer. And I think people would be interested to know, so because we know a lot of misinformation has been spread, information has been spread, and you touched upon, and General Sir also spoke about how misinformation also plays a role, and how important it is to give the right information. And in terms of Agniveer specifically, is it easily people can say that it is just a cost-cutting measure, things are not the same as it is before. Is it only like that, or is it because of the paradigm change, the shift that is happening in terms of warfare, that Agniveer has been brought into the system?
Right, so there are a few ways to look at Agniveer, and I'll tell you briefly. We keep talking about employment, right? So is Agniveer an employment? The answer is yes. Say they didn't go for Agniveer prospect and I was there and I didn't want to go to the army, right? So what do? I'll get an education. I'll try and get a job. I'll try to refine my skill set, spend 4 or 5 years, get a promotion and go ahead. In CV street in private sector, if I do that, I can leave a job in 3 years, I can be kicked out in 5 years, I will hunt for another job, right? So let's be very clear. From a job orientation field, it's a different thing. Look at the cost to the exchequer. Now, I'll give you hypothetical numbers. Say, for example, today we are 10 lakh worth of veterans of the army. 3 of us are sitting here, right? We are all drawing pensions. Money is coming from where? From the country's resource to the pension. That's what people say. The biggest two flabs in the defense budget to be consumed beyond capital expenditure is pensions and civil defense employees, right? So we keep targeting on debates like that. But see it from our perspective. Say we have 10 lakh people and the government is giving 1 rupee each. So you're giving 10 lakh rupees today, right? Next year, there are 100 more going out on pension, right? How many of us are dying? Just 5. So over a period of time, some government, sometime in the future, will have to get this cost down. So today it cannot say General Narasimhan will not get pension because he joined at a term with the service term that time. There was a term, there was conditions for your service. But the government is well within its right to say that anybody who gets commissioned as an officer from say January next year will not get pension. It can say, right? So you are going to say yes to that. You can keep debating, Fauj ka khayal nahi rakh rahe, ye nahi kar rahe, wo kar rahe. This is a different ballgame. Look at that Agniveer. What does media show you and or us? Debate, right? I've been on many platforms, I've written many articles as well on this issue. The bottom line is, 4 years, you're going inside, 25% will be retained by the army based on your merit. The balance 75, there are at least, if I'm not wrong, 8 or 11 ministries which have already been told by the PMO. There's a proper notification from shipping industry, ministry to railways to whatever to say how much of employment needs to be generated, A, with a clear understanding of a 4 years waiver of age. That means when you come out from there, you're still fit to join that service. And what are you coming out with? You're coming out with experience of 4 years of disciplined culture and life and training. Now, if I am Ambani, which I am not, I will surely tell my people to take these people because for their age in the corporate sector, I got a trained, approved, selected manpower. The second problem being projected was about the army itself, armed forces itself. And people, veterans like me who don't know, their job, they will go on television and say, you're taking people, training them for 6 months, what training will they do? No. Today the Jawan, the same Jawan who goes into the army, gets that same training, right? He is designed or trained in a particular manner for a particular set of jobs. Is he doing? Answer is yes. So why do you presume that just because I'm getting into an organization only for 4 years, I will become, Hindi mein they call makra or a shammer of the highest order? It won't happen because army has got its own regulations. So if army tweaks its regulations and says you are a makra, you need to be shunted out dishonorably from service so that you don't get any government facility and job thereafter. You will work the way army wants you to. So I don't think so there is any point there. And to take the debate forward, he talked about misinformation and that reminded me, I missed a point in my slide. Let me talk to you on this. Just 30 seconds more. You saw that election in US when Trump lost. Trump, good, bad, ugly, leave him aside. They lost because of 2 reasons. The first reason, A, was that COVID he can't handle. 5 lakh people, 2 lakh people have died. B, Black Lives Matter, that protest you saw. What was that? Now look at China. They have infiltrated the media in US, the corporate sector in US with money, right? The Hunter Biden, whatever philosophy. Now they've been able to create a Black Lives Matters and the COVID propaganda on television. They have hit 2 things. And 2 things which US was proud of. Edifice of their democracy. Equality. Shattered because Black Lives case came up. And second was their capability to deal with contingencies. The biggest giant on earth had deaths. Capitalist state could not close down like India. People died. I went to US last May, June. People were still dying. And here we are in a country where a lot of propaganda happened on stage, off stage, everywhere, And how many have died? When you see the percentage of people who have died, and that too with 7 decades of neglect in the healthcare infrastructure and security, which the general talked about. So when you see this happening, I think you ought to tell yourself, give a pat on the back for having taken the medication or the precaution, and for the government and the industry to step up to make sure we were not only safe ourselves, but to also use it as a diplomatic tool for getting a lot of favors. That slide, and as General mentioned, we will get closer to people around our boundaries except Pakistan. So we didn't give Pakistan anything, right? But see the other countries, they're all there. So I think in misinformation, the aim of the West, and I'm not saying a particular country, anybody who's not amicable, friendly to us for that degree, will use the tool to hit at the edifice of our sustenance. He mentioned about civilization, right? What is civilization? It is the bonhomie in which everybody could live in this country earlier. How do you break it? You break it by some Khalistani movement, some idiot comes from Dubai and does something, right? You break it. The farmers were the root of our country. You broke it down. You made the government recoil their, policy. So that is the way people will get out of our country, and misinformation. So Agniveer or no Agniveer, take it as brass tacks. 4 साल की नौकरी मिल रही है, काम ठीक से कर, एक्सपीरियंस मिलेगा, 25 लाख रुपए मिलेंगे, अपना स्टार्टअप शुरू कर लेना. बट वो स्टार्टअप करने के लिए मन करेगा तो करना, वरना नौकरियां बहुत मिल जाएंगी. नहीं मिलेंगी तब देखेंगे. बट एट नो कॉस्ट शुड द सिक्योरिटी ऑफ द आर्म्ड फोर्सेस गेट कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड because of these rumors being spread around. Somebody has worked over it, right? Give it a try. Armed forces are not gullible. Armed forces will say every year in a feedback that what is the merit of these people and what tweaks should happen. So give it to our people who are serving still, their intelligence and prudence, that they will speak their mind when it comes. So let's not create any decision there.
Sure.
Just add one line to what he said. There is a larger thing that has gone into the Agniveer that many of us don't know. That is the Prime Minister's wish to bring in nationalism in our youth. If you rotate more people, you will find more people joining, they'll get trained, and more nationalism will come into it. Another project is going to come up very soon, which is creating a Sainik school in every district, which is not there now. It is in one per state. So these are things that are being thought about to bring in and induce nationalism in our youth. That is one of the reasons for Agniveer. Money saved will come only after 12 to 15 years, when after all these people go and people who are already serving will retire. But that is only one side issue, but main issue is to bring in nationalism into our youth.
Yeah, audience.
Raman sir, Sedu Samudram project itself is not economically viable. The amount of money we are going to invest, if at all, for that project and the returns which we will get, it is nowhere proportionate. If we simply see it as a business, will I go and invest in that business? Unless I have a return, I will not invest. So politics around it, we all know how many years it's been going on. There is a religious sentiment attached to it, and there is a practicality of whether we should have a port or not. It is not going to get us anything. By bypassing Sri Lanka or by going through that canal, how much of time are we going to save, and the transportation cost? It's very, very less.
Yeah, next.
Hi, my question is like in secondary sector, basically manufacturing, we are still dependent on machine and tools from say Germany or Sweden, but I feel like say IT, where we are very strong and India is an emerging IT hub, why India is not having its own social media per se or apps, or does firewalling like China, that investment in the sector is strategic and only can be made by companies owned by India, will really help? So please throw some.
Before that, let me give you one anecdote on Hambantota, which he talked about. Hambantota is one of the ports which are very least visited by the ships, right? And whatever business comes to Hambantota, can you all guess where it goes from? Chennai. Okay. The cars produced in Chennai are going to Hambantota. From there, they get offloaded and then reloaded and go somewhere else. So sustenance of Hambantota willy-nilly is being sustained by us. So be aware of this. That is one. The question which came up about the manufacturing tools and why we can't do this. IT. I understand. Not only IT. Today we talk about semiconductors, right? Semiconductors have got, I'm coming to the IT part, let me explain this through that. Semiconductors have got two parts. One is designing, the other one is manufacturing through fabs and everything else. Almost 80% of world's semiconductors are designed by Indian designers. Okay? But we don't produce them. The reason for that is very simple. Each fab costs about $10 to $15 billion to establish, and added to that is the running cost. So there are issues related to that, and again, even China is not able to produce those modern semiconductors of say 532 nanometers, basically because the lithography machines which are to do that have to come from Netherlands, and US has put an embargo on that. So you find it is not one country can produce everything that it wants. It is not possible in today's world. So therefore, you need to be dependent on outside supply chains that come to you. But what we can do, and it is being done, is to diversify those supply chains, build resilience in those supply chains to ensure that what happened in January to March of 2020 doesn't happen again. Because China shut down, many of the stuff didn't come to India or any other place in the world. As a result, many economies suffered. Like for example, your active pharma ingredients, key starting materials for pharmaceuticals, your solar panels, your automobile spare parts, your power sector, all of them were dependent on China. So you'll have to build resilient supply chains, you'll have to build manufacturing capabilities within the country. This I've been saying in many of the forums. I'm sure some people dealing with industry must be here. We in India need to build three things in the industry. One, we have to invest in R&D. Two, we need to have a long-term vision. Three, we need to have risk-taking capability. These three things are actually today lacking in our industries. That we need to build up. Then what you say can happen, but even then, everything cannot be produced in India. You have to be dependent on other countries.
Sir, I have a question in India and China bilateral relations. Like, if you see China, they are claiming that Arunachal Pradesh. Sir, if you see China.
Don't worry, I can hear you. Go ahead. I'm sure everybody can hear you. Yes, you have a good voice.
Yes, sir. Like, if you see China, they are claiming that Arunachal Pradesh is there, and they are building the temporary villages there, and now they are coming to the Sri Lanka, and when we see the Pakistan occupied Kashmir through the Belt and Road Initiative, they are constructing their infrastructure there in Pakistan, so that how India going to overcome the Chinese aggression in these regions, sir?
Okay. See, just because somebody claims something, it doesn't become his. Just because China claims Arunachal Pradesh will not become his. It is ours and it will continue to be ours. Regarding certain villages that have been brought up, it is part of something known as Xiaokang villages. Moderately well-off villages is what they call it. 628 of them have been built all along the border. Okay, that is basically to improve the infrastructure along that border, what they have. Out of it, about 400 plus have come on the eastern sector, opposite Arunachal Pradesh. The rest of it is spread over on the other sides. That is basically something to develop the border and settle the populations there. It has got an inherent problem in settling the border, particularly when we do the boundary question discussions with them. It might create a problem in future, but that is being looked into separately. That is only one issue of it. You talked about BRA, that I don't call it BRA, I call it One Belt, One Road initiative. The reason for that is simple. The Chinese website still says Ita Ilu, which means One Belt, One Road. They've just changed the name because somebody protested. Whose belt, whose road, where is it going? So they just quietly changed the name and said it is Belt and Road Initiative, right? Belt and Road Initiative, you please look at two corridors. You talked about China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which comes through Pakistan, but you have not mentioned about China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, which comes from Myanmar. Their problem was Malacca Straits, which is a choke point where if countries come together, they can do something there. To avoid that, they need to come to Indian Ocean region. To come to Indian Ocean, They need to have an access through either India or through Pakistan or to Myanmar. India is not going to give that access. Okay? So they have gone into Pakistan side, and they have gone into Myanmar side and come into Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So this is their plot. It is well understood by us. Okay? Today, please look at where Pakistan is as far as CPEC is concerned, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is concerned. They are not able to pay back their loans. Chinese have helped them out $700 million now, but beyond that, they are not helping them. They are not rescheduling, they reschedule their loans, but they are not cancelling those loans. So the loan liability on Pakistan is increasing. Myanmar has been very, very careful. They have not accepted the projects that were given by the Chinese. They are very chary of it. There are internal problems in Myanmar because of Chinese influence increasing there. So it is not as if Chinese are coming everywhere and we are doing nothing. I didn't want to take long to explain this, but if you want, I can do this as to how in each of the countries in our neighborhood, how we are doing compared to the Chinese. We are not doing badly at all. I just want to answer that.
Sir, one more question, sir. Like, we are not having fixed border with India and China. Like, as it a line of actual control is an imaginary line. That how this issue will end, sir? Like India and China's issue.
It is not going to end anytime soon. Not in my time. You may probably see the light of the day at some point in time. The thing is, it is not going to get resolved so soon. It is very complicated and it is going to take time. But we are very clear where the line of actual control is as per our perception, and we will defend it.
Sir, as Sunday, it is proud of us. The central government is sanctioning for Agnipath will be retired person on account of re-employment of army, paramilitary, all corporate companies, and as well as on behalf of public, we are requesting the central government, if they are issuing the orders as a GO of central government, all the state and as well as union territory, it will be very effectful, very useful for the Agnipath viewers. Thank you.
That is a suggestion, but only thing is, even today, all state governments are supposed to absorb 5% of the ex-servicemen in their state offices, state government offices. How many states have done that? There is a GO existing, there is everything existing. So the issue is, I understand your point. We'll take it up in some form to say that we need to formalize this. But some states have already promised that they will take that number of ex-servicemen as they come out of the Agniveer.
The really nice talk. One of the questions that usually gets discussed in social media is, can we fight our wars using just imported capacity or imported technologies? So we always discuss about Atmanirbhar and everything. I think this extends beyond the defense manufacturing to other capacities like disaster management. Even recently, when we did disaster relief for Turkey, C-17 that we bought from the US, and the kind of equipment that we used for that, even those technologies were important. So are we looking at some paradigm where we are coming up with our own solutions from our own worldview for our own problems?
Right, so,
I'll add on.
right. So, if you take, see, defense manufacturing is not something which you can put the start button today and tomorrow you can produce, right? I'm quite sure that with this defense corridor coming and the roadmap being clear, we will start with some prioritization. What are critical elements to our own security in the conventional domain first, and we will do that. So, for example, we started manufacturing. I'm from the mechanized forces, so I can tell you, even the artillery. So last 4 or 5 years have been very good for indirect firing weapon systems to be developed. Before that, rocket technology came many moons ago. We were leading from ISRO side. These tanks and ICVs we started making in 1980s and 90s, right? So transfer of technology, everything will happen, and this will grow. Now, if you think that, suddenly we put an order in the commercial sense, say for the Airbus, and tomorrow there can be an Airbus company created in India, that may not be the case. But your pull may ensure that the manufacturing tomorrow of something happens in India. Because after India, the next market is the African continent, which is easier to go to. So any route which you take from energy sector, renewable energy sector, or defense manufacturing, it will slowly come through. Today we have reached a stage, if not very niche end technology, but at least something rudimentary in terms of our weapon systems and some other, defense items we are exporting. So it all takes time, and now you have set the vision, into that direction. It will still take more time. It is not easy. I mean, if you're saying a C-17 or a 130 is going to come and it's going to be used, we are dependent on the US company for their spare parts, the answer is yes. If we are going to negotiate for manufacture of spares here and a critical pool of say XYZ number of years or days to be maintained here, that we can enforce. You saw what we did with Rafale as well, right? So you can have all those offset clauses and you can get things done. So I think that's the way forward, and it's good that the procurement manuals have been refined. We are getting it faster. We are able to put some, way to get procurements directly today. We're not getting hinged by the L1 bidder kind of a concept anymore. So I think there are new phases in each country, and we have missed the industrial revolution for the first time. We want to make it the next one here. I think we're on the right track, and defense will not be kept out of it. And I think these two revolutions, the green one, the energy part, and the defense one, are something which, keenly. And startups, you see the Defense Expo, which happened, and you see the Aero India show. You see the IDEX forum which has been created and things like that, and how startups are coming through. So slowly and surely, we mentioned about R&D, and sir mentioned that it's a weak case, right? We have been very poor in that R&D. And today for green hydrogen, out of the 19,700 crores, I think 400 crores is only for R&D. So the country is thinking in that direction, and I'm quite sure in the defense part as well.
Just to add to that, to your question, to increase indigenization, what the Defense Ministry has done, it has announced 2 lists of negative list. These will not be imported, which we have the capability to manufacture within the country. That is one. 2, the defense manufacturing is improving. So what we are doing, we are going into exports. By 2025, the target is to export $5 billion worth of equipment from us to outward. So that is 2. And diversification is another way that you are actually ensuring you are not bogged down by one particular country or one particular thing. So a lot of things are being done.
Okay, my name is Tinku. Unrest. You're all talking about border and stuff like that. For example, how does the top security of the country views the separatist movement, for example, whether it's Khalistani movement or the farmer agitation? So specific to Tamil Nadu, if you see Tamil separatism, how does the top leadership or top security look at the Home Ministry or looks at this, which is fueled by journalism? Since Prafulla is here, fueled by the journalism. How how is it handled, or how is it treated and stuff like that?
I don't think it is just fueled by journalism. For last 100 years, the so-called Tamil or Dravidian or whatever identity you talk about has been systematically nurtured. Today morning, and I asked some friend of ours that you tell me a single instance before 1920 where a Tamilian fought against a Kannadiga or any Hindi speaking or whatever speaking person on the basis of Tamil identity. There's no instance. So, unless we decolonize ourselves on this identity issue, we are not going to deal this just by security understanding. And that's why I'm saying that this is basically a battle of ideas. Now, there is one interesting trend that started from the US. You may not be even aware of this. There's something called a movement for Mithilanchal. Now, Maithili is a language which is spoken in northern part of Bihar and also in some parts of Nepal. Now suddenly, Maithili is being propped up as an identity. Now, for us, as I said, language was never identity. British introduces the mistake that we made, or perhaps our, the great Congress party made, was on the basis of those identities, Congress formed its units. Otherwise, in Madras Presidency, what was the language? There were so many languages. What was the language of Cholas? Pandyas? Was it only Tamil?
No.
Still we didn't fight. Why? Because for us, it was a means of communication. The state never had language or religion in India. The problem is the ideas that we have conceived through the British prism. Two kings who made their personal religion as state religion, we consider them secular, Ashoka and Akbar. So, we are actually selling the wrong ideas. So, I am hinting basically at the education, fundamental research, not only in technological terms, but also in terms of humanities and social sciences. I am seeing security threats coming more from there rather from across the borders.
I'll just add on to what Prafulji said. As far as the internal security is concerned, the one which is supposed to govern it is the Home Ministry. We have a robust structure, but it doesn't happen at the pace which a public perceive is supposed to happen. Like for PFI, the PFI and its the effect of PSA, the extreme radicalization coupled with murders, an act of violence and terrorism. It took 5-6 years to build it up, to make it a robust case, watertight, and then you go and ban the organization one day, coupled with actions from NIA and so on so. So unless or until we have that sort of thing, it is going to take some time. Separatism thoughts are being monitored. It is not that it is not monitored. But till date, this so-called idea of separate Tamil Nadu or Dravidistan or whatever we call, it doesn't have got any popular support, even in peak of those movement in 1960s. It's less than 1%. It's not a political issue. As we close in towards the elections, any election you can see, they will never open a mouth about any of the such sorts. So we can just continue to be, happily encourage them to do so. Nothing is going to happen. Thank you.
So I am Suresh. My question to General Sir, what is the Government of India stand on the Kacheti issue on geopolitical as well as security issues, sir?
See, the political issue I don't want to cover because it's got political connotations. I leave it at that. But strategic part of it, that is being taken care of by the Navy. That much I'm aware of. I don't want to get into the political aspect of it because that will lead to further discussions elsewhere. I'll leave it at that.
2-3 questions, yeah. Yeah, that's all. These 2 questions.
Sir, as we know, Chicken Neck is the only region which connects the northeastern states with India, right? Do you think the infrastructure available now is enough to deal with, in case of a war with China? If no, what's the alternate way to deal with it? And I have another question, sir.
One question.
In recent days...
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
In recent days, we are hearing from our defense minister, like we are going to reclaim Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So, if it is possible, if so, how much time it will take?
No, he's looking for a bride.
Chicken Neck, let me tell you the story of Chicken Neck. For the information of the audience, I commanded the brigade and division in that area. And it was my job to defend it. Okay? It is a 20-kilometer broad area wherein you find the pipeline, the road and the rail and the communication lines all pass through that gap. Therefore, you find it a problem in case that is cut off, the entire northeast gets cut off. There are many scenarios in which it can happen. Those have been worked out already and we also worked out how to defend it. Let me tell you only this much, sleep peacefully, we will take care of it.
Just for your information, militarily there is one more chicken neck, right? that is where we operate. So that is the area of Jammu, where you cut the Chenab river. The top portion is also called chicken neck. And there we are not defending, we want to take it back.
Yeah.
Your other part was about POK, right? What are you going to do there? Visit there.
Sorry, one question. We are talking nation's pride and all those.
Sure, we'll take
So I feel it should start from the kids. So on one side we talk about Agniveer, the nationality, nation's pride and all those. But the other side, what I feel is there is a hole in the boat. We haven't yet fixed the history textbooks of the CBSE syllabus. So unless, say for example, a grade 4 or a grade 5 student, he studies about India's history, could be past or whatever we have done earlier. So how do you expect people to come into this Agniveer? Or we aren't projecting any pride about India in any of the history textbooks till now.
So I'll just give you a 10 second, then give it to him. Sure. You heard Amit Shah ji last week? Same question was asked. And he was politically very correct. Right, so India's history is very rich history, right? And we ought to know. I also said the same thing. There's a change in the curriculum happening. I hope you're aware. It started when Smriti Irani was education minister.
But it's too late, right? Because
it's okay. It's never too late. Because if it doesn't happen in this generation and in this Amrit Kal, it will never happen again. So support the mission. Let the due change come the way it is supposed to be coming and embrace it. But, there will be, like he said, wokes, and they're on my list also as well. They will say, India का वो बदल दिया. मुझे बताओ किस शाहजहां ने कौन सा रोड बनाया था कि दिल्ली में 15 सड़कें उसके नाम पर ही हैं? It's a straight question. All those names of roads everywhere, almost in metropolitan cities, are based on people who never made roads. Beyond a point, they never made that road at least. I don't want to get to Melapur anymore now. So it's okay. Melapur आओ संभाल लो. बाकी देखते.
But so isn't it too late, because it's almost like 70 years now, right? So
you have to start at some point in time, right? It is
better
late than never, right?
Because if you take this government,
what is the biggest story that India has told to the world? What is the most popular story that India has told to the world? Ramayana?
Yes.
Did Valmiki go to Korea? How many of you have read original Valmiki Ramayana? 2 of us?
3.
3?
4.
Yeah, 1.
And still entire world knows Ramayana. Why? Why?
Television.
Never believe that Indian history can be written by the state. Though I have contributed to National Curriculum Framework, so I can tell you. But it will not come by the state. And don't expect, in fact, the best thing will be to get rid of history textbook written by the state. The best thing will be more people's history from people's point of view, from original sources, come from below. The point is, we have not invested enough, as I said, not just in R&D from technological point of view, but R&D in historical and social science narratives from our perspective. And that is the need. We are working on it. right from Shukraniti to Arthashastra to everything we are trying to bring in, and hopefully NEP will change that scenario.
Yeah,
But it will be based only if, whether it is Sanskrit or Tamil or Telugu or Kannada or Marathi or whatever, Bengali, unless we go to our original sources and retell on the basis of those sources, we are not going to change the real history. We'll do some kind of, superficial kind of changes, but the fundamental, and that fundamental is missing. Unfortunately, after R.C. Majumdar had taken a voluminous work immediately after independence. In 1953, Nehru stopped that, and that was a major rupture. If that cultural history of India would have rewritten, the things would have changed. We can't keep now crying about, British did this, Thapars and Habibs have done more damage to us.
But one concern is we still feel that, I am a strong believer that India didn't get violence. India didn't get Swaraj because of non-violence. So, say for example, the Bhagat Singh or the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, they have not been portrayed in a better way.
75 years of independence was mainly meant for that.
See, and another thing is that we cannot put this entire onus on the government and the state, because history or cultural practices about my Kuladevam, no history book, nobody has written it. Parents play a vital role. We can't ignore the fact that every one of us, parents play a vital role. How much time you spend with your kids and what you teach them. And today, let's be very, very brutally frank. Today, this was there in the newspaper, a 6-year-old kid, 1 year before, he accidentally touched a mobile, some YouTube video, got addicted, and he is in a de-addiction center in Bangalore. Now, whether we hand over the mobile to the kid and let him or her learn the history on its own, or we coach them, we parent them, tell the right things, that what is India is all about, and with the best of the knowledge you have, I think 136 crore, 50 crore parents, this can happen in next 5 years. Thank you.
Yeah. Shyam sir also wanted to ask. Yeah, you finish. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, in the very recent past, we have seen instances where the Indian diaspora have spreaded narratives to destroy the social fabric of our country, especially in events which happened in the Twitter, in the entire structure of Twitter, and also very recently with regards to the Khalistani movement. So, looking forward, what kind of a role do you see from the Indian diaspora across the world with respect to our security?
See, I have a lot of better people are there to answer, but my point of view here is, we have been engaging with Indian diaspora across the world very, very effectively in the last 7 to 8 years, I would say. Before that, it was very, very less. And Indian diaspora's engagement with our domestic politics and domestic policy making has also gone up considerably. As far as specific to Khalistani thing, it's an organized campaign. There are bots involved, there are paid medias, agencies, all of them go trend. There is an algorithm to it, so people do it. But this entire idea of Khalistan is to basically people who migrated way back in 60s and 70s, who wants to hold that power center. For that, they need an umbrella. That's Khalistan. And anybody who migrates from here, who want to be secured, when you are numerically in minority, in any other place, you always want to stay together. So this umbrella actually favors. This is going to continue. It is going to be positive. It's also going to be negative. And with the kind of migrations we have, we call it as a brain drain, but look at the positive side of it. In lot of countries, down 15 years, 10 to 15 years, in lot of countries, if I could name it, 13 nations, Indian diaspora would play a very, very critical role in deciding that government, which is very good for us. It's happened in UK, Rishi Sunak, which is happening in a lot of other places. So,
see, don't expect our diaspora to be less colonized than us. They are extension of us. So when the Medicine Square event was planned, Initially, people thought, oh, there may be at least 20, 25 Indian groups that were working in the US. And when people actually started working, they realized that on the basis of temples, sects, languages, there were 248 groups that were functional, and no two groups were ready to sit with the third one. Madison Square was the first event where more than 200 Indian groups came together to attend Modi's rally. That was a game changer in many ways in the US. What is happening is, lakhs of students are going, aspirational students are going to the US campuses. And there is one school called Cultural Studies, in the name of liberal arts. You know, this told us Cultural Studies. And Stuart Hall was the founder of that Cultural Studies, who was a neo-Marxist. And it was started somewhere in, if I'm not wrong, California. And the plaque that says that the purpose of cultural studies is not to study the culture, but to challenge the existing one and create a new one. Now that idea of cultural Marxism is overpervading in the US academia. Unfortunately, most of the private universities that are coming up in India, it originally started in JNU, but now JNU is in much better state, but maybe Ashoka, maybe Jindal's, and Azim Premji University. These universities are spreading those ideas much faster. And aspirational students who are going there, they are easily getting carried away with those narratives which see anything that is Indian, civilizational, traditional with lot of contempt. And so discarding anything, and that's why they believe in these fault lines with conviction, with theoretical conviction, and they believe something as if they are fighting, like many of the people in Tamil Nadu believe that just talking about some pride or some names, they are actually fighting about social justice. Social justice situation is much worse than many of the Indian other states in Tamil Nadu. But we have been chanting for last so many years in the name of one movement. Social justice, social justice. The similar things are getting extended there. So if we manage the things here, whatever that is there, it doesn't make much difference. We have to manage first things here. Internally, if we are divided, then we can't say, oh, Pakistan is taking benefit of our fault lines and they are propping Khalistan movement. Oh, China is doing this. Oh, sorry. You are carrying forward British policies. You correct that, nobody can take benefit of you. That's the simple point. That is true with diaspora also.
Diaspora, I think our diaspora is very good, right? They are much aware. What we need to do is, for example, you mentioned a particular case, like Khalisani movement and propaganda happening. There are many facts. So somebody has picked up a person A, and on that entire Twitter thread of about 8 or 9 tweets, he or she, whatever the handle is, they have given a lot of evidence of that person's personal money involved here and there. Similarly, for that global foundation of Jack Soros, the George Soros, the other Indian who's there as his whatever employee. So when these things are there, you need to propagate it. So what you do is you give it on Twitter, give it on 15 more handles, give it on your WhatsApp groups where you have 1,000 people already there. And then, like somebody said about the Indian platform, there's something, I'll give you an example, that Coup is equal to Twitter, right? It can give you an option for multilingual kind of a tweet. So I only type in English, it converts into 10 more languages. So do that. And once you do that, you also put your Twitter tweet into the Coup so people can go there as well. And second thing is, all these vokes follow each other. But all of us who are the higher intellect kind don't follow each other. That's the problem. Because I have seen it in many movements which I have been part of with the diaspora. I did a small tweet 2 or 3 years back as a test. And I was voting for A or B option, knowing fully well that A is more nationalistic and B is totally woke. And I did the similar tweet for less than 8 hours, we won. I put the same tweet for 7 days, the Vokes won. Why? Because we went and just did our tick, like or whatever your option, we said very good. Vokes on my thread line, look at this idiotic kernel, please go here and vote against this. and they propagated that tweet 1500 times. So that is the energy and focus of the Vokes. And if citizens get that focus and energy, I think Vokes won't exist. But that's a hard truth. I mean, how many of us follow each other here?
Sir, have we accounted India's cultural security in reimagining India's security paradigm 2030? Is there any program to patent the cultural identities of India? Is there any idea to patent it so that it's a bigger support in imagining India's security paradigm 2030, as I believe so?
See, the issue of cultural security is not in terms of paradigm that is problematic. Because, the issue is with the educated people. Uneducated India is much more rooted and civilizational. The more we educated, the more uprooted we are. So we have to have special training to be nationalist, like Agniveers. Now, where is the problem? The problem is with the categories that are created to identify what is our cultural or civilizational heritage. I'm pushing for one idea. I hope it works out. We need to amend the ASI Act. Archaeological Survey of India is a creation of the British administration. So they have identified as heritage, which is not actually our heritage. So Kashi is not heritage site. Rameshwaram is not heritage site. Why? Because the criteria to recognize it as heritage has to have British prism. And the law is, so we need a major tickling there in legal terms rather than, of course, it need social awareness because every village, every locality has its own important place. Because, see, in India, we need something tangible to connect with. There are bigger ideas, and that has been there. Like, for example, now we had this, Tamil Kashi Sangam. Just a big idea. When I went to Kashi 15 days back, I found more Tamilians there than, anybody from UP outside Kashi.
The archaeological support has been so vital for the Chinese to speak, to decide on Tibet. The archaeological findings
absolutely
have been accepted by the Chinese, even along the Indo-China border.
No, I don't accept that simply because Chinese are more colonized than us.
Through our archaeology,
You believe me, Chinese are facing more problem in terms of history and archaeology than us. Chinese are more worried about their history writing than us. They are, and their next generation is more Americanized than us. After 50 years of destruction of so-called Confucianism and Taoism, they are trying to revive it. Because they have a fear that either Tibetan Buddhism or missionaries or yoga movement will take over China. So don't underestimate this, other soft power instruments. The point here is we need to strengthen our mechanisms and our institutional structures. Like, for example, US, which is hardly a 600, 700-year-old country, not even that, has got more than 40 lakh heritage sites. What is heritage there? After killing and wiping entire indigenous population, they have created heritage in last 500 years. And the civilization which is 5,000 years old, it doesn't have even 5 lakh heritage sites. So the problem is, we don't consider it heritage. We have stopped considering it heritage, and that's why this Ramagamana Path is important. Why this Krishna path from east to west is important. We need to revive these small places, every place that connect us to our roots. The moment Karnataka start connecting to Vijayanagara, Kannada issue is solved. The moment Bihar starts connecting to Magadha and Vaishali, Bihar's backwardness is gone. Take it from me. We need to reconnect with that. Otherwise, Bihar is just a not even 100 years old identity. There is no Bihar word before 1928. There is no Karnataka word in entire Indian history. There is Mysore, there is Vijayanagar, but there is no Karnataka. We forget this. And we have assumed that this is our identity. So we need to connect to our real heritage, then the problem will be solved.
Okay, thank you so much.